Welcome back to Ink and Impact. If you remember from our first episode this season, it's all about one thing: perspective is everything. And today, I want to take that perspective and put it to music because music is interesting to everyone, to anyone. And that's how we express ourselves mostly. You don't have to speak the same language to feel it. You don't have to know every word. Don't even have to understand the lyrics. Sometimes the beat tells you what words could never explain. A melody can make somebody smile on the other side of the world. A drum can make a room full of strangers move together. A song can bring people together who have completely different backgrounds, different cultures, different beliefs, different experiences. And somehow, for 3 or 4 minutes, we're all hearing the same thing. That's perspective. Now, the soundtrack of us. I've always felt like music carries memories. There are songs that can take me right back to a particular moment, a particular person, a particular version of myself, a season I thought I would never survive, a season I never wanted to end. There are songs that carried me when words failed me, songs where the lyrics hit differently depending on where I was mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And that's what makes music personal. Two people hear the same exact song and walk away with two completely different experiences. One person hears heartbreak, another person hears healing, another person hears a memory, another person hears possibility. One person hears the ending, and another hears the beginning. Same song, different perspective. Now, when the lyrics change, have you ever gone back to a song years later and thought, wait, that's what that song was saying? Because you changed. The song didn't necessarily change. You did. You gained experiences, you lost people, you healed, you grew, you learned things you didn't know before. And suddenly, lyrics once sounded one way now sound completely different. That's one of the most beautiful things about perspective. Sometimes you don't need a new song. You need a new understanding of the one you already been listening to. Now, music without a language. Let's take this even further, shall we? Music doesn't belong to one language. It doesn't belong to one country, one race, one generation, one culture. Music travels. It crosses oceans. It crosses borders. It crosses language barriers. Think about watching people dance to music when they don't even understand the lyrics. They're still feeling something because rhythm doesn't always need translation. A heartbeat doesn't need translation. A melody doesn't need translation. A drum doesn't need translation. Feeling doesn't always need a vocabulary. And maybe that's why music has such a powerful ability to bring people together. For a moment, we're not separated by what we call things, we're connected by what we feel. Now, the world's soundtrack, let's think of it, think about a stadium, a concert, a festival, a church, a parade, a celebration. You can have thousands of people standing next to each other who have never even met. Different stories, different lives, different perspectives. And then the music starts. And suddenly everybody knows when to clap, when to move, when to sing, when to be quiet, when to celebrate. Nobody has to explain the rhythm. Everybody just follows it. And I think there's something beautiful about that. Because maybe music reminds us of something we sometimes forget. We're different. Because we're not as disconnected as we think we are. Now, know your note. This brings me back to the personal side of the soundtrack. Because if life has a rhythm, then we have to learn our part in it, right? Sometimes it's your turn to move. Sometimes it's your turn to pause. Sometimes you're supposed to sing. Sometimes you're supposed to listen. Sometimes you're supposed to harmonize with somebody else. And sometimes you need to stop trying to overpower the entire song. Know your note. Know when it's time to sing it. Know when it's time to sit quietly. Know when the rhythm is changing. And most importantly, know when the song you're listening to no longer represents the person you're becoming. When the soundtrack changes, because maybe the soundtrack didn't change because the song changed. Maybe it changed because you did. And that's perspective. You can look back at the same moment and see something completely different because you've become someone different. You can hear the same lyrics and finally understand what they are teaching you. You can revisit a memory without returning to the person you were in that moment. You can appreciate the song without needing to live in the season that introduced you to it. And maybe that's the growth. Not forgetting the soundtrack, but learning how to listen to it differently. So, my lilies, as we continue through this season of Ink and Impact, remember, perspective is everything. Sometimes perspective changes through experience, sometimes through silence, sometimes through faith, and sometimes through a song. So pay attention to what you're listening to. Pay attention to what moves you. Pay attention to what brings you peace. Pay attention to what keeps pulling you backwards. And pay attention to the new rhythm God may be introducing into your life. Because your life has a soundtrack. And maybe right now you're learning a new note. And maybe you're learning a new rhythm. Maybe you're learning when to move. And maybe you're learning when to pause. Or maybe you're finally ready to sing. Until next time, my lilies, keep tending to your garden. Keep looking at life from a different perspective. And remember, sometimes the soundtrack doesn't change because the song changed. It changes because you did. This is Ink and Impact. And this season, perspective is everything.